What in the actual Fox Sports is going on? I thought this morning I would wake up and work on my wild card weekend preview, talk about the NFL, but I was greeted with some juicy details about the Fox Sports allegations, workplace misconduct lawsuit, and my brain started to unravel. Look, I'm not a journalist, but today we're going to walk through the 11 allegations against Fox, share my opinion, so let's get started. As you can see, there are technically 14 against Fox, but a few of them are due to money and wages, so we're not going to talk about those because they're a lot less interesting than the ones that we will discuss today. If you're interested in the whole document outlining this case, it is 42 pages long, but if you're into lawyer stuff, I'll put that down in the description. You can read it. I will be covering a lot of quotes from this 42-page document in this video. This whole deal involves these 5 individuals. You probably know 3 of them: Joy Taylor, Emmanuel Acho, and Skip Bayless. The other 2, we will discuss who they are, how they fit into the puzzle. So let's introduce all 5 of the cast members for this incredible tangled mess. We'll start with Noushin FARAJI. She was a hairstylist at Fox for 12 years, and she is the plaintiff. She's the victim here. She is outspoken about the misogynistic, racist, and ableist treatment that she received while she was working at Fox. We have Charlie DIXON. He is the executive vice president of content at Fox Sports. He worked for ESPN for a while. He was in charge of First Take. He had a large role in hiring and casting at Fox Sports. He also has a degree in European history, which makes me scratch my head a little bit. How did he get the executive vice president job at Fox Sports? Oh, yeah, probably privilege and money and nepotism or something. Emmanuel Acho is an analyst for Fox Sports 1. He's a former football player. He was the host of the show Speak with Joy Taylor, who we'll talk about in a second, and he currently hosts The Facility. He's also well known for advocating for human rights, civil rights, and his relationship with God, which is an important side note as we talk about the allegations against him and things of that nature. Last, we have Joy Taylor, who, as many of you know, is a host for Fox Sports. She hosted Undisputed with Skip Bayless and Shannon Sharp. She currently hosts the show Speak, and we share a birthday, which isn't super important, but I did think it was rather interesting. Not last but not least, this is last and certainly least. Skip Bayless is maybe human garbage. It's to be determined. We'll let the courts decide. But if what we're about to read is true, Skip Bayless is human garbage, and some of you already knew that. He is known for his time on First Take and ESPN, as well as Undisputed on FS1. So how are these people connected? All these 5 people. Well, these 4 people got their hair done by FARAJI. She was their hairstylist at Fox, so she had a relationship, although it was casual, with all 4 of these people. Then we have DIXON, who was the boss of all 3 of these people. Now, he had a prior relationship with Skip Bayless at First Take and ESPN, but then he moves to Fox and he becomes the boss of Skip Bayless again, but also Acho and Joy Taylor. Joy Taylor is connected to Skip and Acho for hosting both of their shows, Undisputed and Speak. Like I said, it is an absolute tangled web of a mess, so let's lock in and talk about the 11 allegations. Allegation number 1 is that Bayless offers FARAJI $1.5 million. No, not for a fresh fade, not for taking the grays off of his scalp, for sex. He made sexual advances on her for years, hugs, kisses, pressing his body against hers, and he referred to her as voluptuous. She didn't know what that meant because English was her second language. Bayless found it amusing that she didn't know what it meant and told her to, quote, figure it out. FARAJI then goes on to develop cancer, and she thought by bringing that up, it would kind of lessen the pressure from Bayless. Maybe he would take pity on her. He did not, and eventually grabbed her hands, began kissing them, and offered her $1.5 million to have sex. He asked how much money it would take. She said, absolutely no way. And he says, the more you say no to me, the more I want you. Allegation number 2, Bayless makes some racist remarks towards her. Approximately a week later, he was making some advancements again, and she asked him to stop and said, don't you have a wife? He says, aren't you Muslim? Doesn't your dad have 3 or 4 wives? She responded that her father was dead, and Bayless looked taken aback. Bayless then also accused her of having sex with his co-host, Shannon Sharp, even though she adamantly denied it. More on this later. Next up, we have Charlie DIXON and Joy Taylor. In the court documents, FARAJI alleges that Joy Taylor engaged in a sexual relationship with Charlie DIXON in order to get the undisputed job. This was all while she was newly married to Richard Giannotti, who eventually filed for divorce. In May of 2016, FARAJI shows up in Santa Monica to have a drink with Joy Taylor, and she sees Mr. DIXON and Mrs. Taylor together. From their body language, she could tell that they were sleeping with each other, and she was concerned since she knew Joy Taylor had just gotten married, but she decided to stay quiet. It was none of her business. Skip Bayless later told FARAJI that he didn't even want Joy Taylor to be on the show Undisputed, but that Charlie DIXON was adamant that she be the host. And in order to convince Skip Bayless, DIXON arranged a dinner between the two, and he had Taylor dress provocatively and act provocatively to hopefully convince Skip Bayless that she was the one for the show. When that did not change Mr. Bayless's opinion of Joy Taylor, DIXON asked him to approve of her as a favor to him. Reluctantly, Bayless agreed to do so as a favor to a friend. So I want to talk about that because that's weird. Not only is DIXON using Joy Taylor sexually, but he is also pimping her out in some respects to other people at Fox. Like DIXON knew Skip Bayless was enough of a creep that if he sexualized Joy Taylor at this dinner, made her dress provocatively, that maybe that would change Skip Bayless's mind. Like the wording of the court document literally says, when that did not change his opinion, as if DIXON went in with a plan to say, well, if I make her an object, Skip Bayless may want her. 3 months later, FARAJI was out to dinner with Joy Taylor and her husband, Mr. DIXON, and his wife, and during that dinner, Joy Taylor's husband was suspicious of their relationship, later found evidence, and later divorced Joy Taylor. Allegation 4 happened at Joy Taylor's birthday party. Like I said, we share the same birthday, so in a weird way, I feel a little bit culpable. But DIXON approaches FARAJI at the bar and offers her a drink, and then rubs his hand on her lower back down to her butt. She was mortified, she faked a call, and she got away from the situation. She didn't know who to talk to about this, so she went to Joy Taylor. Why? Because Joy Taylor was in a relationship with Mr. DIXON. So she probably thought, I'm going to tell my friend that her boo thing is touching me, because, she probably would want to know that. But as she told her, Mrs. Taylor responded by saying, get over it, and explained that she only had her job because of Mr. DIXON, and that FARAJI only had her job because of Joy Taylor. I just gotta say how awkward that would be to be watching two of your coworkers have a relationship and approach one of them when the other is hitting on you, so to speak, as if you're being a good friend, and then have your friend say, yeah, get over it. Like, I just can't fathom the hoops we're jumping through here. Allegation number 5 deals with DIXON firing another female talent who will remain anonymous because she refused to have sex with him. Her contract was about to expire, and Mr. DIXON told her that she would need to have sex with him if she wanted to renew it. There was not only this account, but there were also accounts of him doing this with other women talent. Now, FARAJI found out about this and tried to tell Joy Taylor, who basically said, no one cares, it's not going to happen to me. It's important to note that no actions were taken to address the concerns raised, and that Fox enabled high-ranking individuals to abuse their authority, and it's still probably happening. While all this is going on, Joy Taylor gets re-engaged to a new man, Earl Watson. Earl Watson finds out about Charlie DIXON and Joy Taylor, and he breaks off the engagement. He threatens to go public with all this information, and so to keep it all a secret, Charlie DIXON pays him off. In walks Emmanuel Acho. Joy Taylor wanted to be the host of the show Speak, and to do so, she slept with Emmanuel Acho. Well, FARAJI then sees Emmanuel Acho at work, and she becomes a little bit paranoid. She says, wait, you're sleeping with two different men at the same job. She's like, you got to be careful. Mr. DIXON is powerful. You don't want to set him off by him finding out you're also sleeping with Emmanuel Acho, right? Joy Taylor says she's not worried about it. DIXON is no longer useful to her. She would follow through on her plan to tell the company that he forced himself on her. She would not allow herself to be forced out by Mr. DIXON like any other women talent. Timeout. We got to talk about this because I feel bad for Joy Taylor some ways. The sports media industry has been dominated by men, and women have not had an equal shot in this field. And it's sad that a woman feels like the only way she can succeed in this industry is to have sex with her bosses and coworkers. And I'm not saying Joy Taylor is blameless. And I also don't want to take away from women who have worked their way up in these fields without having sex with their coworkers. But I do think it's time, 2025, to give women equal rights in sports media. And not just for what they can bring men, bring the viewers as a sexual object on the screen to look at, But that part aside, it is alarming, and I do blame Joy Taylor for the awareness that she had of the situation, in that she was going to blame Charlie DIXON for harassing her if this ever went south. If you make the choice to have sex with your boss in order to advance your career, that is a moral gray area, but legally, it's not the worst if you're both consenting adults. Like, don't get me wrong, it's bad, but there are worse things. So the fact that she says if she's going to get forced out at the hand of DIXON, she would turn it around on him and say that he abused her when she consented to try to advance her career, that's not good. And it's also dangerous to women who are actually victims in these situations, because it just repeats this cycle of nobody believing them. Oh, she's just making it up. Because right here we have a firm example of someone who was willing to just make it up, to lie about it. So yeah, on one hand, I feel bad for Joy Taylor for having to live in a society that has oppressed women in the sports media industry. But on the other hand, if you're going to make the decision, you have to own it. You can't throw DIXON under the bus for this, although he still should definitely be thrown under the bus. I should also add that Joy Taylor could very well possibly be a victim as well in this situation. He probably faced a considerable amount of abuse from DIXON with the power he had over her. And we may find out that Joy Taylor didn't consent to having a relationship with them. She was forced into it and then became scared of what would happen to her if she decided to get out. So I wanted to acknowledge that the opinions I'm giving are based only on one story, which may not be accurate. Did I say there were 5 characters? There's actually 6. The 6th is Bobby Diaz. He's an audio guy at Fox. Long story short, he's the guy who supplies the cocaine to the employees and talent, so he got away with whatever he wanted. He would openly grope, harass, and do other inappropriate things with the women, including removing his pants, and because he supplies the cocaine, he never got in trouble. Allegation 9, FARAJI dealt with being targeted for her ethnicity, being called a Persian B-word at a dinner by a woman who would eventually go on to get fired from Fox. But before she was fired from Fox, she was reported to Human Resources, and Human Resources didn't keep the report anonymous, and so she came after FARAJI even harder after the reports. And Human Resources told FARAJI to just leave the workplace when Mrs. M was having an episode. No accountability for Mrs. M, just victim blaming. Mrs. M was eventually fired, but given a large severance package, which her ex-boyfriend, who is a producer at Fox, shared. FARAJI wonders why Fox rewarded her bully with money. Allegation number 10, it's alleged that DIXON wants to appease his wife after she finds out about his various rendezvous with women at the workplace. And so yeah, DIXON's wife is kept on the payroll, so she'll keep her mouth shut. And just over a year ago, Bayless again told FARAJI that he still loved her, and he said that Mr. DIXON was actually the one who told him that FARAJI was sleeping with Shannon Sharp. He again tries to have sex with her, and she writes in a diary entry, she has no idea what she's going to do. She doesn't want to lose her job, but it makes her sick that Fox continues to support people like Charlie and Skip. So here are my thoughts about the people involved. Bobby Diaz, Skip Bayless, Charlie DIXON, human garbage. Abusers of their power and privilege and money should face consequences if all of this is true. It just makes you wonder how much of this goes on daily that we have no idea about. As for FARAJI, I applaud someone who is willing to be brave enough and come forward about this stuff. We need more people to do it. But it's scary when they are providing your next paycheck and probably have mob and mafia ties. Joy Taylor, we already discussed. Again, part of me feels bad that she felt like she had to take these steps in order to advance her career, but doing so with the backup plan of eventually blaming DIXON for all of it, which, don't get me wrong, he is to blame, doesn't quite sit right with me. But I still think something needs to be done about women being represented in the sports media industry, and not just for what they can offer men. And lastly, we have Emmanuel Acho, who is sort of arbitrary in this situation. Legally, he is probably the least culpable of any of these individuals. Morally, we have a conversation. And we only have a conversation because of what Emmanuel Acho stands for. This is a guy who has constantly been in America's face about human rights, about doing the right thing, about being a man of integrity, about bowing down at the feet of Christ, about loving your neighbor. Loving your neighbor or your coworker. Like, if it wasn't for Emmanuel Acho's need to tell me how to be a good person for the last 5 years, I don't think he really matters in this situation. But here we have a case of another celebrity who people put on a pedestal or think is perfect that ends up being just like the rest of them. And I'm not saying that 2 consenting adults cannot engage in a little bit of sideways yanka yanka. I'm just saying that it doesn't quite match the behavior of what you would think Emmanuel Acho would condone. I'm sure we'll get more information soon. I'm going to go take a nap.